We are in Hilchot Avodah Zarah v'Chokot HaGoyim, Perek Sheni, Halacha Dalet, or Gimel and other editions. You should be able to see it on the screen. ולא עבודה זרה בלבד הוא שאסור להיפנות אחריה במחשבה. Previously we saw that it is asur to be drawn to and to consider any system of thought which involves Avodah Zarah, or as we're about to see, which is will have a similarly deleterious effect on a person's spiritual well-being. The first of the misvot in the list of the misvot at the beginning of Hilchot Avodah Zarah v'Chokot HaGoyim was Shilo lifnoth ahar Avodah Zarah. And the second was, which means not to be drawn towards, not to consider in a positive light any such thing of having to do with Avodah Zarah. And the second was Shelo lathur ahar hirhur halev u'riyat ha'inayim, not to contemplate and consider, and kal v'chomer, how much more so to accept any system of thought, any philosophy which is opposed to the Torah. And Rambam writes in Sefer HaMitzvot, Mitzvot Lo Ta'aseh Mem Zayin, that one of the mitzvot of the Torah is to place, as it were, a barrier, a wall, which prevents us from considering and contemplating, and how much more so accepting any such system. So part of the Torah is to accept the Torah on the one hand, and also to reject and not even to consider the possible truth, as it were, in any other system. Now Rambam continues here in Mishneh Torah, Perek Bet Halacha Daled. You should see it on the screen. ולא עבודה זרה בלבד הוא שאסור להיפנות אחריה במחשבה. Not only Avodah Zarah itself in its explicit form, אלא כל מחשבה שגורמת לו לאדם לעקור עיקר מעיקרי התורה. Any idea, any concept, any system of thought, philosophy that may lead a person to reject any of the essential principles of the Torah. We are commanded not to consider and not to contemplate these ideas. We should not allow ourselves to think about such things, or to sleep over it, or sleep on it and consider it tomorrow. All that is asur. We are not to follow all the various thoughts and ideas that may arise in a person's heart on such matters, because the human mind is, when all is said and done, is both finite and frail. It is very easy to imagine all sorts of things and to accept all kinds of ideas, as we see. We all see this around us, that many people will buy into an idea for a whole range of reasons. It might be because this is what everyone around him or her is thinking. This is the accepted and enlightened, supposedly, way of looking at things, and therefore they also accept these things. We know this is true. We see it all the time. That's one possible reason. So it has to do with social acceptance and implicit, explicit or implicit social pressure. It is also the fact that the human mind, as I said, is frail and limited, and can imagine all kinds of things, especially if a person has some vested interest in arriving at that particular conclusion. And that's what Rambam says. ולא נסיח דעתנו לכך, ונחשוב ונמשך אחר הרהורי הלב. Why not? מפני שדעתו של האדם קצרה. A person shouldn't think that, well, I'm very intelligent, which a person may be, and I'm well educated, which is also a possibility, although nowadays it's less likely. Excuse me. Few people are truly well educated nowadays, but let's just say it's true, for argument's sake. And I'm not joking, by the way. Ask your average American university student to find Finland on a map, and they won't know. They won't be able to tell you. And that probably that should tell you all you need to know. So not to mention more complicated issues. So, yes, this is true. This is a fact. And yes, and therefore we need to be directed and told what the truth is, so that we are not misled by all manner of claims and ideas and thoughts. The word de'oth here, of course, means not all people, not all intellects, not all people, individuals, can appreciate and arrive at the truth, the profound, immutable truths of reality, of existence. And if every person goes off and says to themselves, well, I'll read up on this and I'll look at that and I'll see what how I feel about it, as if such things have to do with feeling. In which case, and if they do, a person will always, left to his own devices, a person will prefer that which is to his benefit, that which is to his advantage in some way. So if, for example, to give a simple and concrete example, if, according to the Torah, a person must accept that Hashem knows, and only Hashem knows, what is the good that a human being must seek and follow and accept upon himself, and what is the evil that a person must flee from and must under no circumstances acquiesce to. In other words, if a person accepts and understands that only Hashem knows what is the good and what is the bad, and what a person should focus on and what a person must not focus on. And that is called Kabbalah Malchut Shamayim. That is what we do essentially when we read Kriyat Shema every day. We are accepting the yoke of heaven. In other words, we accept upon ourselves the fact that Hashem knows and therefore tells us what is good and what is not good, what we must act out in this world and what we must not act out in this world. So that's one choice that a person has. And on the other hand, a person has the choice to say, well, there's no one knows what's good and what's not so good. Who's to say? There are lots of opinions, and many systems, religious systems, philosophical systems, ideologies, and I'll just do whatever feels right, or what doesn't, or that which does not require me to accept any limitation on what I may and may not do. Your average person is likely, almost certain, to follow their desires, their physical base desires and interests, and nothing else will really have any impact on them. And if you need proof of this for this claim, you just look around the world today, because that is how most people in the world perceive themselves and life and reality. Namely, I will do whatever I like, whatever feels good, whatever is expedient. That, Rambam says, Imi Mashech kol adam ahar mahshavot libo nimsa maharib ha'olam lefi koser da'atho. First of all, a person is causing great harm to themselves, to their spiritual existence, to their intellectual existence, in other words, to their own soul, as it were. Second of all, he will act out this freedom that he believes he has achieved, and he will do all manner of things because that's what he feels like doing. It makes sense to him, and it allows him to give his appetites free rein. And then the world itself is also mushhat, that is to say, will be corrupted. And this is what we see in Parashat Noah, beginning at the end of Parashat Bereshit, beginning of Parashat Noah. We see a world in which en din wa en dayan. There is no law and there is no judge. And this leads not to a wonderful state of freedom and bliss, but actually it leads to the opposite. It leads to hell on earth. And therefore it's a luxury which we cannot afford. This wonderful freedom and free choice. It's a luxury that we as individuals and we as a nation, the Jewish nation first of all, and any nation for that matter, and in the third place, the world as a whole, human existence, human society as a whole cannot afford such a wonderful luxury, in inverted commas. It is a recipe for certain disaster. Rambam explains further, and he says, Kesar, this is now halacha hey on the screen, or halacha, still halacha gimel, Kesar, pa'amim yathur ahar avodah zarah, ufa'amim yahashov bihuda boreh. Sometimes a person might be of the opinion, he may wake up one day on that side of the bed and think, well, I like this philosophy or this idea, I'll follow that system. And another day, he'll wake up and think, no, maybe these people are right, and maybe there was a creator, and maybe I do not really know what's correct and what's not correct, but the creator must. Shema hu, Shema eno. Maybe he exists, maybe he does not. ما لمعلى ما لمطى ما لفنيم ما لأحور. These are questions which can be understood either mala mala, what is above, what is below, what is before, what is in front, what is behind. These are questions which are mentioned in Masech Chagiga to do with shall we say mystical teachings of the Torah, which were kept very much under wraps. But I will give you a practical example, which we can which we run into nowadays, to quite frequently. Let us speak for a moment about such mystical teachings. Some people would call it Kabbalah, use or other terms. According to the teachings of Kabbalah, shall we say, before the creation of the universe, there was only the only thing that existed was Hashem. Now, that's just a given, a statement, but it's not something that is truly and fully comprehensible to the human mind. And then you have the concept of tzimtzum in Kabbalah, which is the act of Hashem to bring to existence another reality, a created reality. Now, to ask questions about exactly how this works, and what was before the tzimtzum and what was after the tzimtzum, and as if we can place Hashem under a microscope and examine how this affected him or did not affect him. But these are not just silly and empty questions. They're very dangerous questions because they lead a person to begin imagining and inventing all kinds of ideas and, as it were, insights, when in fact they're not insights at all. They're just ramblings, because this is beyond the capability of the human mind and soul to comprehend and to digest. So Hazal said, do not ask such questions. There are, in other words, we see from that discussion in Masechet Avodah, which is what Rambam is quoting here, that there are certain things we cannot ask, and we cannot hope to know. And if you try too hard to know such things that you cannot know, it will not do you any good. In fact, it will harm you. So we just have to accept, as we said a moment ago, and as we quoted from Sefer HaMitzvot, that the Torah requires us to erect a barrier, a wall between ourselves and certain modes of thought and certain ideas, because they are dangerous and pernicious. This is also what we're saying here. Even if a person says, well, I accept Hashem, etc., but I want to know how this works, what happened before, what was going on before the universe was created, and what happened after the universe was created. Well, you may want to know, but you cannot know. And you just have to accept that. That is an act of humility, of intellectual and spiritual humility, which a person is required to accept upon themselves. Similarly, a person may think about nevuah, about the concept, the reality of prophecy. Ufa'amim ba-nevuah, says Rambam. Shema hu emet, shema ena. Ufa'amim ba-Torah, shema hi min ha-shamayim, shema ena. Is prophecy true or is it not true? Were these people who really received uh, inspiration and direction from above, or were these just, talented poets, writers of ancient Hebrew? Is the is the Torah from Hashem, in Hashemayim, literally from heaven, or is it not? ואינו יודע המידות שידון בהם עד שידע האמת על בוריו. And a person, most people, will not know how to approach these questions philosophically, intellectually, and how to reach the correct conclusion and understanding, and therefore, and it is very possible that as a result of such thoughts or investigations, a person will end up completely lost, spiritually, intellectually lost. And Rambam continues, وعن إنيان زاب هلخا well. وعن إنيان زا he's here Torah, ونأمر ולא תثו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, something we repeat every day, twice a day in Kriyat Shema. The Torah tells us, do not follow your heart or your eyes. Because our hearts and eyes, our eyes can lead us astray, and our hearts can lead us astray. Our minds are, as we said, frail. And the Torah tells us, that which leads you astray. The note is to go astray. You may not, each of you, follow your own limited intellect. And imagine that you can achieve an understanding of the truth. And Chachamim therefore explained this pasuk. And Echem literally refers to the eyes. In other words, the nuth. In other words, all manner of illicit sexual practices and interactions, etc., etc. That is the nuth. This is a very powerful. This can have a very powerful effect on a person if a person allows themselves to be drawn into these things. All things, all matters to do with human sexuality, etc., are like an explosive material. It can either be used for the good, to build a tunnel in a mountain, shall we say, or it can be used for evil purposes, for destroying, where in a situation where it is forbidden to destroy, not as an act of war, for example, where it is not forbidden, where it is justified and sometimes required. But all things to do with human sexuality are very, very precarious. They can lead to wonderful things and they can lead to terrible things. And this too we see around us all the time, everywhere, and it really doesn't require much discussion. Any reasonable, serious person can see that this is the case. But the sex drive in human beings, as in other living creatures, is very, very powerful, and therefore it has to be channeled and moderated, as the Torah instructs us. If it is not so, then again human society unravels completely. that has to do with Zinuth. With regards to Minuth, this is intellectual uh, Zinuth machshavtit, Zinuth ruhanit. In other words, going astray, following one's heart, but one's intellect, not one's carnal desires, but one's intellectual predilections or preferences. Walau ze, and this isur on the Torah, ולא תתור אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אף על פי שהוא גורם לאדם לטורדו מן העולם הבא, אין בו מלכות. The reason a person is not hayav malkuyoth, not flogged for engaging in such thoughts, is because en bo ma'aseh, there is no action involved. That is the overall universal kelal principle when it comes to malkuyoth. If we're talking about something she'en bo ma'aseh, there is no malkuyoth, but that does not mean that it is very, very serious. Therefore, Rambam says, "Afar pishu hu gorem la adam lo torado min ha'olam haba." It's extremely serious because a person is endangering his entire spiritual existence now and in the future, in the world to come as well. Rambam continues, Halacha Zayin. Miswaf Avodah Zarah, in other words, the Isurim that the Torah imposes with regards to Avodah Zarah, which, as we have explained, as we see here, does not refer solely to Avodah Zarah in the technical sense, but anything which similarly leads a person astray and leads a person to lead a life of licentiousness, of dissolution. All such things are asur, as Avodah Zarah itself is asur, because they all bring a person roughly to the same place. And therefore, this set of miswot and ideas and prohibitions of the Torah, miswat Avodah Zarah, keneged kol miswot kulanhi. It is the most central pillar and fundamental concept in the Torah. Literally, it is equal in weight to all the other miswot. Sheneemar v'chi tishugu v'lo ta'asu et kol miswot. And that parasha over there was explained by Chachamim, umipi hashemua lamadu sheba'avodah zarah hakatuv medaber. So the parasha is speaking about Avodah Zarah, and he uses the term v'chi tishugu v'lo ta'asu et kol miswot. Halamata shekol hamodeh ba'avodah zarah. He who accepts in his heart, in his mind, Avodah Zarah, or any such claim. The same is true of atheism, which is not Avodah Zarah in the sense that a person is not bowing down to something, but it is minuth, as we've seen, as we've mentioned, as we'll see again. Anyone who accepts any such system, kafar b'chol Torah kula, is by definition rejecting the entire Torah, or b'chol nevi'im, and rejecting the words of all the nevi'im, all the prophets, b'chol mashan nistavu nevi'im, and all the teachings and all the practices of all the nevi'im, all the prophets, me'adam wa'ad sof ha'olam, from the beginning of time until the end of time. Sheneemar min hayom asher siwa Adonai v'hala ledorotechem. V'chol hakofer ba'avodah zarah, and anyone who rejects avodah zarah and therefore accepts the Torah, even if this is only implicit. Modeh b'chol Torah kula. If you reject avodah zarah, you reject all these ideologies, you are accepting the Torah. V'hi ikar kol misvot kulan, and this is the central thrust of the Torah in terms of regulating human activity and life. And therefore, Halacha Heth or Hey, Israel, She'avad Avodah Zarah, a Jew who worships Avodah Zarah, Harehu Kiroi L'chol Davar. He is to be considered, Rambam says here, L'chol Davar, for all purposes. Technically, that's not correct, for all purposes, according to the Rambam at least, because Rambam himself says, even a Yehudi Meshumad, Yisrael Meshumad, a Jew who is completely immersed in the world of Avodah Zarah, shall we say, who then, but he's definitely Jewish. He was born to a Jewish mother, no question that he's Jewish. And he marries a Jewish woman. According to Rambam, the Kiddushim, the act of marrying this woman is valid. And she requires a get. She requires a bill of divorce from that man in order to be considered no longer an Eshet Ish. There are Rishonim who disagree with this position. The Bar-Hayim, for example, holds that a Yisrael Meshumad Lahachis is his en Kiddusha Tofasim. That even if he marries a Jewish woman, it does not take effect. So, for what matters is it such a Jew to be considered a non-Jew, as Rambam writes here, according to Rambam, Harei hu k'choi l'chol davar. One example is one well-known, famous example is shechita. For example, let us look up this halacha, for example. You should be able to see on your screen now in the Hilchot Shechita in Sefer Kedusha, Perek Daled, halacha Yod Aleph or Yod Daled. Here Rambam writes, Yisrael meshumad la'avira min ha'aviroth. If a Jew is known to be a meshumad la'avira min ha'aviroth, shaya mumhe, harei zeh shohet lechatchila. וצריך ישראל כשר לבדוק את הסכין, ואחר כך ייתננה למשומד זה לשחוט בה, מפני שחזקתו שאינו טורח לבדוק. So if we're talking about a Jew here who generally he's a Jew, he lives according to the Torah, but there are certain things he does not do, and it's known that he, for example, he is known to shall we say, sleep with women in a promiscuous manner. So he's meshumad la'avira min ha'avirot. He is meshumad with regards to that particular mitzvah. If you didn't see it before, you should be able to see it now. Yisrael meshumad la'avira min ha'avirot. Not all the Torah. Shayam mumhe, but he knows how to do shahita. He learned shahita, but he's also mekulkal in this particular regard. He's allowed to do shahita, but we don't trust him to, shall we say, check the knife as it should be checked. Therefore, Usarich Yisrael kasher livdok et hasakin. Israel, who is known to be kasher, who knows how to check the knife, must check it before he does the shahita. And then hand him the knife to do shahita. Because the hazakah is, the assumption is that he's not going to bother too much about checking. He doesn't bother about certain other things, as we know. Why should he bother particularly about this? He'll probably think, well, it's just a humrah, or it's just those rabbis have all these rules, and they like to make life difficult. So I'm sure that the knife looks fine to me. Gamano, let's do the shechita. So we have to check the knife. However, if a Jew is known to be a meshumah la'avodah zarah, that he regularly worships avodah zarah, or mehalel Shabbat lefarhesya, or he is known to be a mehalel Shabbat, and we know this because he does it in public. The person, we don't know what a person does necessarily behind closed doors, but we know what he does if he does so openly and brazenly. Or alternately, he's a min. As we said before, a min is a number of things which we've discussed before and we'll discuss again. But for example, a person who is a avowed atheist, that is a kind of minuth, a form of minuth, of apostasy, of forbidden and mentally reprehensible thought or opinion. وهو كفر بالتوراة, and he rejects the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu and Moshe Rabbeinu כמו שבאנו בהלכות תשובה, הרי הוא כגוי, he is to be considered for this matter and many other matters, but not all, as we mentioned, to be like a non-Jew. ושחיתתו נבלה, and if he does shahita, such a person, even if we check the knife, even if we saw him check the knife and we checked it ourselves and we know the knife is fine, his shahita is nevela, as if it was the shahita was done by a non-Jew, and a Jew may not eat from that meat. That's one example, not the only example by any means. When it comes to distributing sadaqah, charity, for example, well, clearly a kosher Jew is to be taken into account before any such person is taken into account. And the same would apply to counting such a person for a minyan, for example, is not possible. And this is the case. Now we return to Hilchot Avodah Zarah Perek Sheni, and you should be able to see it on your screen. As we said, Yisrael she'avad Avodah Zarah harei hu k'chol l'chol davar. He is be considered a Gentile for all purposes. It is not the same as a Jew who, unfortunately, tragically, is hayav mitha, even maybe liable to be put to death by Beth Din, capital punishment for transgressing a certain avera, shall we say, sleeping with a married woman, a woman who is not his wife. He might be a Jew who believes in the Torah, etc., but he performed this terrible act. Such a person is chayav mitha, but he's not considered a goy l'chol davar, not at all. We cannot be meshumad la'avodah zarah and not be considered meshumad l'chol Torah. In other words, a person who is known to engage in avodah zarah, or, as we said, other types, similar philosophies, atheism, etc., is considered by definition to be meshumad. In other words, to be someone who abrogates and disregards the entire Torah, not just a particular isur in the Torah. There might be a Jew who keeps Shabbat and even goes to a shiur every day in Daf Yomi, but he has a particular weakness for bacon, and when no one's looking, he eats bacon for breakfast. That is asur. He is deserving of punishment, which in this case would be malkuyoth, would be a flogging, but he is a Jew, l'chol davar. He is considered Jewish in every way, in every respect. He is sinning, but he's a Jew. But because this does not have any impact on on his overall status as a Jew. Whereas avodah zarah or minuth do in fact alter and degrade his status and his position in the eyes of the Torah. And that's what Rambam writes in this next statement. Halachat taif or he. V'chena minim mi-Israel. And the same is true, as we said before, minim, Avodah Zarah, they are, for many purposes, to be considered, to be cut from the same cloth. Enam ki Israel davar min hadavarim. If a person is known to be a min, he's not to be considered a Jew for any purpose. وَإِن مَكَبَلِمْ أَوْثَامْ بِتْشُوفَى لِعُلَامٍ. In fact, we also do not accept such a person. Even when this person comes to us and says, yes, I was such a person, I was a min, I was an atheist, and I've changed my mind. وَإِن مَكَبَلِمْ أَوْثَامْ بِتْشُوفَى لِعُلَامٍ شَنَأْمَرْ كَلْ بَآهَ لَا يَشُوفُونَ وَلَا يَصِيغُوا الْحَوْضَيِّمْ, which is explained by Hazal to refer to minuth. Now this halach has to be understood correctly and precisely. It is not saying that a person cannot do teshuvah and will not be accepted by Hashem if his teshuvah is sincere and true. That is not the case. Here we're talking about how we, the Jewish society, relates to such a person, because we cannot be certain that this person is in fact what he now claims to be. He claims now to be a good Jew, and he has repented, and he has seen the mistake of his ways, etc. And it may be true, but it may also not be true. There is room to doubt this person, and therefore, kabadehu wa hashdehu. Respect him, but be wary. So therefore, it says, "En mekabelim." Mazim mekabelim. Who's mekabel? We, Jewish society, we do not accept him back. And simply say, okay, you've changed your mind, that's what you say, okay, bevakasha, you're in, we accept you back. It's not so simple. Hashem accepts everybody if the teshuvah is true, but that's Hashem's, that is within Hashem's purview and realm of competence. We cannot know the inner thoughts of a person. And in this context, Rambam says the minim in general can be defined as follows: Hem hatarim ahar machshavot libam, those who follow their ideas, their thoughts, their inclinations, besichluf bidvarim shamanu, they follow all kinds of ideas and notions and philosophies foolishly. Ad shenimsa'u uvarim al gufei Torah, and as a result, they will abrogate the Torah, they will transgress the Torah. Lahachis. They will deliberately, knowingly transgress the Torah, not like the Jew we mentioned before, who has a weakness for bacon and likes to have some bacon occasionally where no one's looking. That is not lahachis, to anger, deliberate. That's not going out of one's way to sin. These people we're talking about here are people who high-handedly, deliberately, and demonstratively transgress the Torah. B'sha'at b'nefesh, b'yad rama, literally with a high hand. In other words, with no compunction and no shame at all. And they say, yes, of course, I do this because I think it's fine. It's mutar. It's not that I'm doing it because I can't control myself. I'm doing it because I think it's okay. This is how the world should work. And one should not even debate such people. There is the famous parasha at the beginning of Sefer Mishneh, describing a promiscuous woman, according to the Pshat. But it is understood by Hazal and many of the Mefarshim as it also refers to the Pshat as it's written, that a person should have no dealings with such a woman, obviously. But it is also a mashal, an analogy for minuth, for going astray, ideologically, religiously, theologically. And one should have nothing to do with such people, because you're unlikely to change their minds, but you may be affected by them. وَأَلْ تِكْرَبَ الْبِتَحْ بِثَا. So therefore, keep away from them. If you look up those Pesukim there in Mishneh, Perek Sheni, you will see what those Pesukim, what that Mashal, how it describes these types of people and their thoughts, and compares it to a promiscuous woman. Umachashebeth mean la'budah Zarah, and we assume, it is correct to assume, that a person who is of such accepts such a belief system, always has such things in mind. In other words, the shahita of a non-Jew is considered nevela, because we assume that he had some thought, some intention connected to Avodah Zarah when he did the shahita, because that was a common reality. It was part of that pagan world, and therefore Chazal said the same is true about this is true for a non-Jew. It's also true for a Jew who's a min. If a person is into that philosophy and that way of life, then we assume that everything he does is connected to these things. So a person who is a min, for example, who writes a Sefer Torah, the Sefer Torah is to be burned. That is the halacha. Sefer Torah sheketavo min yisaref, because we assume that his intention when writing the words of the Torah and writing Shem Hashem was somehow connected to Avodah Zarah, because it is usually the case that a person who is into such a system of thought attaches everything he does to that system, to those ideas. Therefore, any Sefer Torah, any mezuzah, any pair of tefillin written by a person who believes in ideas, in thoughts, in any kind of religious system which deviates from the Torah in an obvious manner, such as considering a certain human being to be immortal and not to be dead, even though he is clearly not alive. Any such item is to be considered has the same status as a Sefer Torah or tefillin written by a min, and one should have nothing to do with such products. We will end here for today. Hayu beruchim. Hizku yames levavchem kol hamyahalim Adonai. Shalom v'nitzachon.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.